Genesis chapters 1 and 2 give us the details of God's creation of the universe. But after the 6 days of creation, we notice that God rested on the seventh day. If God is omnipotent or all-powerful, why does he need to rest? Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the seventh day God finished his work that he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all the work that he had done. So God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it God rested from all the work that he had done in creation. Critics like to point out here that an omnipotent God shouldn't need to rest. And this doesn't just pose a problem when it comes to God's attributes. It also creates potential biblical contradictions when we see passages that teach things like what we find in Psalm 121, verse 4. Behold, he who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The reason why this question is so important is because the mythology of the classical world did have stories of gods resting because they were tired or even going to sleep. In Mesopotamian mythology, some of the gods needed to rest after major primeval events. They had responsibilities that were tiresome. We can see this in 2 different places. The first is the ancient Akkadian epic of Atra-Hasis, which mentions a great flood and talks about the creation of mankind. For some of the lesser gods, life is difficult. The text says, "They did forced labor, they bore drudgery. Great indeed was the drudgery of the gods. The forced labor was heavy, the misery too much." So the gods create mankind to take over these duties. In another story called Enuma Elish, we see that the Babylonians had a similar view of their gods. The story begins with 2 primordial deities named Apsu and Tiamat. They create the other gods, who then proceed to keep their parents awake at night, as children do. Apsu, the good father, complains to Tiamat that he can't get any rest. He says, "Their ways have become very grievous to me. By day I cannot rest, by night I cannot sleep. I shall abolish their ways and disperse them. Let peace prevail so that we can sleep." The conflict between the gods escalates quickly. One of the gods kills Apsu, which then enrages Tiamat. The gods are afraid of her except for one named Marduk. He kills Tiamat and then subjugates the gods who were her allies, and then he creates humanity to do work. He says, "I shall compact blood, I shall cause bones to be. I shall make stand a human being. Let man be its name. I shall create humankind. They shall bear the gods' burden, that those may rest." In the ancient myths, this is the reason why the gods create humanity. The gods are tired. They want somebody else to do this work for them so that they can do other things like rest or take up less taxing administrative responsibilities. Well, this is not what we see in the Bible. In fact, what we see in Genesis 2 is not the description of a tired God, but of an artist who is completing a work of art. So how do we interpret this passage? It seems to be telling us that God needs to rest. Well, first of all, what we need to understand is that this viewpoint is a misinterpretation of what the text is actually saying. When the Bible says that God rested, it uses the word Shabbat, which means to cease, to stop, or to come to an end. In many places where this word is used in the Hebrew Bible, it means to cease performing some activity. So it doesn't mean to go to sleep or take a nap or to stop working because a person is tired. It means to desist from a particular activity. So what we see in Genesis 2 when God rests is not a manual laborer taking a break because he's tired, but a master artist who has just put the final stroke on his masterpiece and is now laying down his brush because he is finished. That is a very different understanding from those who misinterpret the text to mean that God was exhausted from creating everything. It results from the failure to understand the meaning of key words in the original language. So what the text is telling us here is not that God was tired, but that when he completed his work, he was finished. And it was just the way that he wanted it.